Well, welcome back to our podcast, the Raise Your Bars podcast with myself, Chris Baker, and Al Rattan up here in Canada. How you doing, Al?
I'm doing good, Chris.
Good, good.
Enjoying the summer weather. It's hot here today.
Yeah.
Hot. Yeah.
Well, we've been hot, and we're in Florida. We got the afternoon and evening thunderstorms every day now as well. But
Okay. Yeah.
it's all cool. It's all good. It's all good.
Yeah.
So I got my little pup on my lap because he doesn't like the thunder. So
Oh,
if he
yeah.
can't, I apologize in advance, everybody.
Yeah.
So, welcome back. We took a break last week from our leadership lessons with Ted Lasso series, but we're back today, and we're thrilled to continue the exploration of the remarkable leadership qualities exhibited by our favorite football coach, Ted Lasso. And in this episode, we delve into a crucial aspect of leadership, which is emotional intelligence. And
Yeah. So good. So good.
for those just tuning in, emotional intelligence, or EQ as it's known, refers to the ability to recognize, understand, and manage our emotions and those of others. And Ted Lasso's exceptional EQ has been a driving force behind his success as a leader. So let's dive right in and explore four. I originally was going to be four. I added two more, so 6 key teaching points on how Ted's emotional intelligence has enabled him to navigate difficult situations and at the same time connect with his team on a deeper level.
Yeah, Chris, you know what? I love this topic of emotional intelligence, and it really is truly fascinating. And folks, if you're listening and you haven't done an emotional intelligence assessment, then you should reach out to me, and we can make that happen. And you'll definitely discover some great things about yourself. But one of the cornerstones of emotional intelligence is the empathy, right? And this is the capacity to put oneself in another's shoes and really understand their feelings and their perspectives. Now, Ted Lasso's empathy really shines through in a lot of instances throughout the program, and it really plays a pivotal role in connecting with his players. Take the example of Roy Kent, the seasoned footballer, struggled with feeling undervalued and after being benched, right? But Ted's approach is a masterclass really in that empathy emotion. Instead of brushing off Roy's concerns, he takes the time to have a one-on-one conversation with him. Ted actively listens, acknowledging Roy's feelings of frustration and the self-doubt that he's experiencing. And by doing this, he creates this safe space for Roy to express himself openly. Now, this empathetic act not only boosts Roy's confidence, but it also strengthens the trust between the player and the coach.
Yeah, it's so true. And if you're familiar with the series, you'll know that this didn't happen in like one conversation.
No.
It happens over a period of time, because initially there's a lack of trust, right? A sort of why are you asking this type of thing, and you know, the empathetic approach takes time to build that trust. Al and I talk about and teach about a trust meter, you know, and you're basically building that trust bank, and you're increasing that trust meter. So if you haven't seen the series, watch it, and then watch for this interaction and see what happens.
Yeah, I was going to add to that, Chris. I think that it was such a shock. It was such a shock to Roy, just like it is a shock to a lot of people, because they're not used to having leaders taking this empathetic approach with them.
Exactly.
And you're right, it does take time building that relationship and that level of trust, so your team feels comfortable opening up and sharing with you, because it takes vulnerability, and vulnerability needs a lot of trust present in the relationship.
It does. And when we say time, it can take months, it can take years with certain people, depending on the sort of the height of the walls and the strength of the walls that they've built up. So exactly. So don't give up, but make it genuine. So our second point today is about emotional regulation, and this is how to turn conflict into growth. So emotional intelligence is not just about understanding emotions, but also about managing them effectively.
Mm-hmm.
All right. We see this in action when Ted faces a heated disagreement with Jamie. Jamie Tart is the talented yet young, arrogant your arrogant young player, and instead of reacting impulsively, Ted employs emotional regulation to turn the conflict into an opportunity for growth. And
Mhm.
this is what I call he doesn't react, he stops, pauses for a little bit, and then responds. Right?
Yeah,
There's a subtle but huge difference there. And Ted
absolutely.
recognizes that it's Jamie's arrogance is masking deeper insecurities. And rather than criticizing him, Ted finds a clever way to make Jamie realize his impact on the team by using humor and genuine concern.
Mhm.
This, in time, it helps Ted to break down Jamie's defensive walls, as we talked about earlier, and helps him embrace a more humble and team oriented mindset. Now, what this does is it showcases Ted's ability to steer emotionally charged situations towards positive outcomes. Wouldn't that be nice if we could learn to do that?
Absolutely. I think one of the key things that you mentioned here is that he took time, he paused, right?
Yeah.
There's, our speaker trainer for the Maxwell leadership team talks about when you're giving speeches or keynotes, the power of the pause,
Right.
right? Those carefully timed pauses in your message, but there's also power in the pause when it comes to dealing with people,
Hmm.
especially in those heated situations. So we
Absolutely.
are ensuring that we're not reacting in kind when that those heated situations creep up.
Right.
Pause. Our point 3 here is going to talk about social awareness, and this is really creating this supportive environment. The skill of understanding the emotions and dynamics within a group is really where the social awareness comes into play. And Ted's social awareness is evident in how he fosters this supportive and inclusive environment for his team. In one instance, when Sam faces racial discrimination, Ted takes a stand to address this issue head on. And then Ted demonstrates his social awareness by not only supporting Sam, but also involving the entire team in the conversation. Now, this encourages open dialogue, allowing the players to really share their perspective and their emotions on this matter. And by doing so, Ted not only strengthens the team's bond, but also makes it clear that everyone's well-being is essential to him as a leader. And
Yeah.
that's another great point that us as leaders need to be aware of is that everybody is important and everybody's well-being is important.
Yeah. Absolutely. And this is all about, an inclusive environment and being an inclusive leader. So let's go on to teaching point 4. It's emotional intelligence in decision making.
Mhm.
Cool. So Ted Lasso's emotional intelligence significantly influences his decision-making process. Instead of making choices based solely on logic or impulse, Ted again takes time to consider how his decisions will impact the emotions and well-being of those involved.
Mhm.
Now, by involving his team and considering their feelings, Ted fosters a sense of ownership and inclusivity, making them feel like valued contributors to the team's success.
Hmm.
This approach not only enhances trust, but also leads to more thoughtful and sustainable outcomes. So
Mm.
again, listen as you sort of listen back to that, and we encourage you to listen to this episode probably several times, to be honest, because there's some gold in here.
Yes,
But look at
absolutely.
those key words, right? The sense of ownership and inclusivity, right? Making them feel valued contributors, right? And you're leading towards more thoughtful and sustainable outcomes. So again, it's not just about today; it's about the future. There's some
Absolutely.
huge points in there.
Absolutely. Which takes us to our point 5 in our podcast today, and we already touched on this a little bit, but managing these emotions in these high stress situations, right? A leader's ability to manage emotions in these high stress situations is really crucial for maintaining this positive team environment. I mean, if the leader loses it, guess what? The team's going to lose it, right?
Yeah.
You need to be strong when things are not necessarily going right. And Ted's composure during these challenging times is truly commendable.
Mhm.
So let's take a look at a scene from season 2 where Ted's emotional intelligence shines brightly. So let me set the scene here. It's an example from the show is an interaction between Ted and one of the star players, Jamie Tart. and when the team is facing a tough loss and the tempers are running high.
Yeah, so Jamie, in a very frustrated tone, shouts out, "This is rubbish. Nothing's going right." And then Ted Lasso calmly replies, "Hey, Jamie, I understand that you're upset right now, and that's okay. But what you do next is what really matters. You can let this frustration consume you, or you can use it as fuel to get back out there and give it your all in the next game."
Wow. Yeah, Ted's ability to remain composed in the face of this adversity not only sets really a great example for his players, but it also helps them to navigate their own emotions
Yeah.
effectively. He turns this difficult situation into opportunities for growth and channels the emotion into positive actions.
Hmm. Yeah. And again, there's what, three seasons of Ted Lasso, and you watch the 3 seasons and you'll see this evolution of Jamie Tart. You'll see Roy Kent, and you'll see the evolution of Roy Kent, and you'll see how Ted is really instrumental in all of that. It's really
Yeah.
quite brilliant.
The writers did a great job on this
They
program.
did. They
Yeah.
did. So last but not least is our sixth point today, and that's self-awareness, which is, Al mentioned it earlier, but embracing vulnerability.
Mhm.
Right? A difficult thing because none of us like to be vulnerable, but emotional intelligence starts with self-awareness, understanding one's emotions, strengths, and limitations. So Ted's self-awareness is evident when he faces personal challenges, particularly as he goes through a divorce and he's far from his son, because his son is in Kansas in America and he's in London. Now, instead of bottling up his emotion, Ted openly shares his struggles with the team. And this vulnerability creates a powerful connection with his players, who realize that their coach too is human and he has his ups and downs. And by acknowledging his feelings and seeking support, Ted sets a positive example for his team, encouraging them to do the same when facing difficulties.
And that is so good, because I think so many leaders, especially the old school leaders,
Mhm.
right? Which,
Yeah,
which I would be one,
right. And
with
me.
without the growth of
Yeah.
experience in 2016 and being around John Maxwell and the rest of the leadership and around people like you, Chris, I would still be that leader
Mhm.
where I was very controlling, didn't show my emotions, had those boundaries in place. I was right, you're wrong, and it's quite arrogant. And what kind of trust are you building
Yeah.
with your team when you're acting like
Yeah.
that all the time? I was not the best leader. Am I better today? Yes. Am I perfect? No, I've still got work to do.
But there's the thing, right? Because if you try and put across that persona as a leader that you are perfect, right?
Mhm.
I tell you, for a start, your team won't believe you anyway, right?
Yeah, they
Because
know.
they'll see the actions, and that's what they pay attention to, not the words. Um,
Exactly.
but what insecurities are you creating in them if they want to aspire to be like you? And they're not perfect. Nobody is, as Al said, right? So if they're trying to do that and they're failing, that's when people quit, right? Because
Exactly.
they're like, "I'm not good at this. I'm never going to be as good as Al, right?
Yep.
So why
I'm not
do I
gonna
bother?"
give up.
Right?
Yeah.
Um, so it starts with you as a leader. It really starts with you. You've got to be that person of influence.
So true. So true. Well, folks, there you have it. Ted Lasso's emotional intelligence has been really this driving force behind his exceptional leadership. And through empathy, emotional regulation, social awareness, and self awareness, he navigates difficult situations with grace. He connects with his team members on an incredibly deep level and really fosters this positive and supportive environment, something that every leader should be doing within their organization. So join us next time for more leadership insights from the one and only Ted Lasso. And until then, remember the importance of emotional intelligence in leadership. And as Ted would say, be a goldfish. That is, have a short memory for the negatives and always stay positive. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. I'm Al Rattan along with Chris Baker, and this is the Raise Your Bars podcast. And if you found value in this today, seek us out on social media, connect with us, please, and share this with your family, friends, and coworkers. Have an amazing day.
Absolutely. Bye.